You want to talk about data?
Yeah, can we talk about data?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so
I love data.
I love the data too. I think that a lot of people have been curious. There's been a lot of questions where people have been saying you should be growing the game. And I think that growth is something that is often misunderstood in terms of like, I think people just want to see everything constantly going viral. I think that is like one thing. But I think that we have seen that like growth happens hurdles, like it jumps. And so I was curious for you if you wanted to talk at all about like the jumps that we saw, because we have more data, what the data does. Because a lot of what people have been feeling is like a lot hasn't been added to the game, but like a lot has been added. And so I'm curious, what are those things you've added and how is it making the game grow a bunch faster?
Well, I think the first thing to think about is when you say growth, you have to sort of define what you mean by growth. And so I think like a lot of different audiences might have different definitions of what they mean when they say, is your thing growing?
Yeah.
Because like I think venture capitalists, so like people that are investors are like, growth means more users overall.
Yes.
And I think that's like the most commonly understood version of growth is like, oh yeah, what's your total player base?
Yes.
But for someone that's maybe like a buzzy app, you could have a lot of growth and none of those users might come back like the next day. I think Threads is a really good example of that. Like when Meta launched Threads, like their Twitter competitor, they had insane growth. And so they talked about like how much growth they had like really fast. But as you dug into the data a little bit more, that growth wasn't necessarily sustainable growth or engaged growth. It was like a bunch of people installed something to try it. Yeah. So, you know, something like that, you're like, well, growth means one thing to be like, did I try this? And did you get a lot of people to try the thing?
Yeah.
Versus like, are you growing in maybe a different way, which is a lot of people are staying for the thing. Maybe you're attracting less players overall, but the players that you are attracting are staying longer and spending more money or something like that.
I also think that there's a difficulty in understanding growth because I've been hearing that a lot where people like they want to see growth. And I think one thing that is difficult about developing VR games versus other YouTube or other app or other like creator platforms, because we really treat MetaQuest as like YouTube. Like if we could, we really want the ability to we would love like if everyone could just see all of our data, like see like that we're growing and all that stuff, but like this is not how this platform works. And so the way that I think what a lot of people try to do is they try to judge how growth is happening through like video views or follower counts. And I think that a lot of people think like, oh, like I got this recently on some of our videos like haven't been getting like hundreds of thousands or millions of views because we've gone to like just pumping out a bunch of videos. So my sense is like a lot of people think like, ooh, like the game isn't growing fast, but like the game is growing like extremely fast right now, but there's no way to like publicly show that, you know? And I think that's like a hard thing because like in Derby and like a lot of VR games, like you're just tied to like one room. And so you can't see like the hundreds or tens of thousands of or hundreds of thousands of players who are all playing at the same time as you. You can only see like, I don't know, up to like 20 or 30. And I think that's like an interesting issue of how to like communicate growth to a game.
Yeah, and I think social spaces are weird too because for us, I think like VR runs into this a lot where sort of computationally you can't have a lot of players in the same space together, and that's something that we're not the only ones that have that problem. It's sort of like and you know even Meta has that problem with Horizon Worlds, and some worlds are sort of like accommodating like more concurrent players in the same space, but it's sort of a challenging thing to do. And even we are sort of pushing the bounds of what we can do with Quest 2 and like, the multiplayer infrastructure that we have. We really shouldn't even have as many players as we have in the same space in a park. Right now,
we are kind of breaking the rules a little bit.
13 players is what we have as the cap right now for public parks. And well, same for private parks. Like 13 players at the most in the same space together. But, sort of like performance-wise, it really should be closer to like 8, which we've tested. And for a little while in the beginning, we tried like bigger spaces, we tried smaller spaces, and we found that sort of like 12, between 11 and 12 was what felt like full enough. And so then we pushed that a little bit to 13, and that's kind of what the number's at now. Any more than that, and things start to like really stutter a bit, especially if you're on slower Wi-Fi. I think that's the other thing that's sort of hard for us to determine is the headsets sometimes are being used like in far-flung places in your house. I know they're popular in like garages or like basements. Sometimes you need to like get away from wherever your router is to have enough play space, and that sort of affects your Wi-Fi bandwidth too, which is hard because it requires so much bandwidth, especially for like voice chat and like all this stuff. And so that is a challenge that I think we face, just based on how people use the device.
But we like breaking the rules. So I had a question in the Discord asking Cody. This is from Cookie VR in our Discord. Shout out to Cookie VR. Could you do a thing where we can change the color of the baseball trail? Instead of red, you can buy a trail and make it blue or black or rainbow or like whatever color you want. Cody, how do you feel about that?
I feel pretty good. It is something that we can do. It is something that we have talked about as making one of the things in the either shop or one of the things that's earnable of different trails. So we have had them be different colors before, and one reason why we decided to go the colors we did was just because everybody else's trails are white and then yours is a different color, so you can see it a little bit better. And so we definitely want to like make it clear which trail is yours, but as long as that is noticeable, I think we could support a lot of different colors, or like custom trails could be a thing. I think animations are a little bit harder, like anything that's like a particle effect, if we're talking about like it's like a rainbow or like peanuts or something, and that's a little bit harder to do just performance wise, because rendering a bunch of baseballs in the sky at once also does take up compute power. So the more complicated the trails get, the sort of more careful we have to be.
Got it.
But colors or gradients are an easier one. Even if it's like a gradient, I think gradients are supported. Yeah.
Dre VR in the chat. Hello, Dre VR. Hi. Okay. One thing you're starting to see also in the space is, and we're going to talk about it a little bit, guys, is Apple Vision Pro coming out, or the pre-orders go live on Friday at 5 a.m. So I will be.
Are you getting up early?
I'm gonna wake up early for Throwback VR for the content.
Do you know? Is there a limit on how many you can pre-order? Like, is it one?
We're gonna test the boundaries.
I just need to know if I need. Wait, I actually can't get up Friday because I'm busy.
Yeah.
So not ideal, but at least I guess we could get one. I heard they're gonna like have you scan your face and stuff when you order one.
Yes, I'm gonna scan my face for the following for Throwback. Everyone on the stream, I'm gonna scan my face so you guys can see what the deal is with this headset. And I think
you're not supposed to call it a headset.
Oh, sorry.
They're very particular about
Apple,
how you talk about the device.
With this thing that is gonna go and be placed
what
upon
are we supposed
head.
to call it if we're not gonna call it a headset? And we're not allowed to use the word VR. We're not allowed to use.
I don't know.
It's a spatial compute device.
It's spatial computing, Cody. Okay.
You don't understand the history of spatial computing like I do.
Yeah. Take it easy. And so, I think that we've gotten some questions. Is Derby going to be on the Vision Pro? Are you going to be able to do stuff on the Vision Pro? I think that we're less focused on necessarily the being onto the thing that goes on your face.
Don't say
more
headset.
Focused. Don't say headset.
Don't
you
say
do not
headset.
say headset.
No.
No. Being more focused. No. I'm gonna throw baseballs at you. No, don't say that. Don't say it. It's not a headset. It's something much more better. But we are gonna be trying to get onto the phone because we want to do this type of broadcast, but from your phone.
Yeah. We are Apple developers. We have built
Yeah, we set it up.
iOS apps and stuff. And so the big question with the Vision Pro is what the inputs are going to look like, because everything right now is driven by Quest controllers or touch controllers, which have become a little more standard across like a bunch of different VR devices. Oh, I have these two things with joysticks and triggers and all this stuff, and the Vision Pro doesn't have any of that. It's just like you have a like hand tracking and like finger tracking, and that's really it.
Yeah.
So
super
I'm curious
useful
how
for
apps
gaming.
like Rec Room, who are going to support Vision Pro, I think on launch, like you're gonna like use your hand to probably move around and like click stuff.
I don't know how they're gonna do that, but I look forward to
it's gonna be different. Like I think they really want you to do more entertainment style stuff versus play games with the touch controllers. Do you think Gorilla Tag will support Vision Pro?
What if Gorilla Tag was on Vision Pro? What? I'm gonna guess not. You could finally have shaders in the game, I guess. I know that's a big question, and that is like, when are they gonna add shaders? But I think I read this great comment last night on Reddit that was like, I don't think that they're ever gonna support shaders because they're more reliant on most VR developers are reliant on their apps working on toasters versus really nice headsets. like they'd rather have a really low quality app that works everywhere as opposed to like you need to have the best, most greatest headset attached to a gaming PC attached to like fiber Wi-Fi. Like, that's just not the move.
Yeah, I mean, this is an Android device at the end of the day. So we're talking about sort of an Android mobile phone that you wear, which is what the Quest is.
Oh, someone requested that I change my bat, so I changed the bat to the pencil bat.
Nice.
So there you go.
We need microphone bats. That should be a bat scan. It is one. It's
microphone bat is
here attached to our actual microphone bats.
An Xbox bat. I don't know how I can do that.
An Xbox bat? We would get sued by Microsoft so fast.
Someone, instant cease and desist. Okay. Next question is from Tech Savage. Oh, he says that everything from the front, the windshield, and the hood of the RV. That's what Tech Savage is looking for as a photo. Tech Savage, we got you. Thank you for responding in the Discord. We're on it.
Snap it.
So what else do you want to talk about, Cody? I feel like there's been a lot of interest lately in your history in building I told that story about how I got into building VR stuff, but I think that a lot of people are curious about how you started building stuff in VR.
I could talk about that. We could talk about data stuff too. Data's not always that interesting. I mean, I think it's interesting. I love it, and I think it drives a lot of the decisions we make. But I can talk about the first time.
Yeah, I
used a headset. So the first virtual reality device I ever used was Nintendo's VR headset, which my mom bought for me when I was little, and we had to wait for it to go on sale. So this was the Nintendo Virtual Boy, which came out in like 95, I want to say.
Oh my god, I was like 3 years old.
You were barely alive. I was at Toys R Us and I saw it and I was like, ooh, like I loved Game Boy, I loved Nintendo. And so I was like, that seems like the next device to have. But it was too expensive and my mom was like, we can't really afford it. So we sort of like waited a little bit, and we used to go to Toys R Us and window shop all the time because my mom owned a daycare, and so we would like sometimes go and look for like discount toys to buy for like her work, and so we would go a lot, but a lot of times we wouldn't buy stuff. So I like kept seeing the like Virtual Boy. I was like, I really want one of those things. And the good news is it didn't sell very well. It was like Nintendo's first real big flop for hardware, and so it went on sale, and there was like a huge discount for it. I think it ended up only being, I don't know, like $30 or $40 after it had launched for like, I don't know, hundreds. And so like finally we could buy one, and so we bought one and we took it home, and it was terrible. This thing, some people are even today like, it's not a VR headset technically, because you don't wear it, you just sort of You put it on your desk and then you like lean into it, and it sort of looks like a VR headset, but it's on a stand. And then you have a controller that you hold. And so, but it's only 3D in 2 colors, so it's just red and black. So it's like you have stereo, and it feels different than playing a game on a TV. But there's no sort of like head tracking. There's none of the stuff that you sort of have in VR today. But I loved it. I think it definitely, like, I played Mario Tennis on it, which was really, really good. You got depth from playing the game in a way you didn't from like a Super Nintendo or something.
Yeah.
And so the problem was it made you really, really sick. And so there was like motion sickness, and also just it really hurt your eyes. The way they did stereo wasn't comfortable long term, so you really couldn't use the thing longer than like 20 minutes. And so eventually I was like, I like playing this, but my eyes hurt. And so as soon as you say that to a parent, your parent's like, okay, it's going back. Not a safe thing for my child to use. So she ended up returning it. So we didn't get to keep it that long. And I was kind of bummed because it feels like something I would love to still have to the day many years later. And I do have one now. I bought one later just so I could try it again and see what it's like. And so, I don't know, I have one in my office and I still play it from time to time. And it feels like a cool little memento to have. That was like virtual reality in the 90s took a lot of weird forms like that.
Yeah.
And it's much better today. So that was sort of like my first introduction to VR was Nintendo. And they only made like, I think, 12 games for it. There weren't that, it didn't last very long, but it was a good experiment for Nintendo.
One thing that we're getting a question on our TikTok chat from Niall Hunter. Niall is asking, what was our inspiration to make the game? And also from KSlime49, make Derby on Xbox.
That would be challenging.
Derby on Xbox would be...
What if we made it a Kinect game?
We could, connect it up. We would love to be on every platform. The hard part is I just don't know how Derby was made for Meta Quest or like for VR specifically. Yeah. And so it's kind of designed around that. But it's an interesting concept.
I would say maybe more than Microsoft, the easier thing would to make it for PlayStation VR. And we have gotten that request from some players.
Yeah, a lot of people have, yeah.
And that's a much easier one to do, I think, because of their platform and that device is more similar to the Quest too. So it would be easier to like port it. The only problem is that working with Sony is very difficult as a new developer. And so I have been warned that if that's the path we want to go down, it is one that we sort of have to be prepared to take a while. And it's very hard for indies to go down the Sony path. Yeah. Which is why we haven't done it so far.
Yeah. Tyler asked, do we need a membership to 1v1? No, you do not. You don't need a membership to 1v1. Anyone can 1v1 in the game. Go crazy with it. Let us know. Do a recording of it and show us your 1v1s in our Discord, and we'll definitely like repost the video on our page.
What do you think of the 1v1 mode so far? I know there's been a little bit of like instability feedback about like scores not always like counting correctly, and I have some ideas on how to optimize that better.
I think it's surprising because like Derby has always kind of been like just more of a fun playground for the majority of the history of the game, and so then like to add in this function where like you tap bats and then all of a sudden like you're like ready to win, like it's like
go high octane 60 seconds.
You instantly flip the switch, which is fun. I think it's a fun idea because it provides this spectrum of intensity where you can be like, I'm just gonna be in here and kind of like, you know, blow off some steam or kind of meditate on my day or whatever, or you can be like, I'm taking you down and I'm gonna you know, like so I think that's a fun aspect of like having a breadth of experiences, not just in like, maps and what you can do or whatever, but also like the emotions you can experience. I think that's really important, so I like it.
I mean, it is our first sort of full game mode within the game, because I think when we talk about Derby, it really is more like a social app than it is a game, because a game requires there to be a win state. It requires there to be some sort of like sense of progress or like loop within it. And so that's sort of the first version of the game within the game that we've tried, which we were a little worried about in terms of like it maybe being too toxic, too competitive, sort of like encouraging maybe the wrong things. And so we wanted to be like a little bit careful there, but it also needed something a little bit more high stakes. And so it's sort of like our first push to do what on the infrastructure is called competitions. And so like we've built this system where you can compete in a lot of different ways, and Versus is really just the first way to compete against another player. But in the future, like, we could support a lot of different types of competitions, and one example of that is like a tournament. A tournament is a type of competition amongst like a group of players where they sort of play asynchronously, and then it sort of like dwindles the farther you get through the tournament.
Someone has asked, did you see my text derby? Did you text us? I don't know.
Do we have a number to text?
I don't know if we have a number to text. One other
Do we need one?
Just
Do we
text
need a
us.
fan? There
Tyler,
should be like a
thank you.
number up here. Text us your question live
Text us.
to this phone number.
You can
like
text
old
us in
school
our
radio
Discord.
shows.
Our Discord is up here. If you if you wanted to text us, you could. The other thing that's been like really on everybody's mind is content creator program. So there are a lot of VR content creators, and a lot of people don't have money that they want to spend in VR, but they want to earn stuff by posting. And that's been like a big request for a long time. And I think that it's like one of the hardest parts to do as a VR team, because it requires like a lot of organization. But I think that it's something that we as a developer team like, have to promote and enable this year. And so I'm curious for you, how do you think about enabling content creators, especially as developers? Because like, not only are we making videos, but we're also trying to make the game be better for the videos.
I actually had an idea and question for you, because I was thinking about this the other day. And one way that we always talk about it and think about it is that what we're building is really more like multiplayer entertainment than it is a multiplayer game, where Derby feels like a space where games could happen, but the bigger part of it is like our job is to make the multiplayer part of the experience entertaining. And so it all sort of like has to service back to like content and videos and sort of the ecosystem of like other entertaining things that are on the internet or your phone. And so I've always thought that, well, creating content is hard, as you know, like getting started is hard. And it's also just not as fun as maybe it should be. I feel like almost what we should do is to make getting started with content creation part of the game. And that we should gamify the journey and the process so that like when we talk about things like rewards or quests, it should feel like those things are laid out so that like, okay, my first step is like do this thing and then like record the video and get it set up, and I should get like rewards for those things, and I should like it should sort like the game should be like, well, you know, sort of like your journey through content. Like I don't know why that hasn't been gamified yet in a
I think it's because there is I think there's no in VR content creation tool that like feels magical. I think that's why, is like in order to incentivize it, you need it to feel magical. And so what you often find with a lot of teams is like, and we've experienced this too, where you get the game out, you launch it. Some teams, they grow slowly, but they make revenue with the launch because every download grows. But with us, we make a free game. So you have this explosive user growth, and then you try to figure out the business, and you try to listen to the players and add all the things that they want. And then like you have like I don't know, depending on the size of the game, like, you could have millions of players before you ever are like, what if we made it easier to make content? And so you have all these like hurdles that you need to pass over or like leap over in order to be successful. And we have done a solid job of like helping people make videos, but like we haven't nailed it. And I think that we do have a good chance of nailing it because one, like, we're going to put this app on your phone that lets you do the camera, that like follows you around and like do these types of streams, which I think is like critical. But there just is no magical way where like the average consumer like understands where the camera is, where the video is being taken, where it ends up in his sync. It's so difficult. It's hard for me. And it's hard.
Well, and I know people make fun of this, but Ninja has a masterclass that sort of tries to, you know, like lay out the steps. And I know everyone like dumps on Ninja, but he's also learned a lot. He has
Yeah.
the lessons there, and so like I saw his book at Target once, and so I just bought it because it was
Oh
cheap.
my God, Cody.
And I went through, and like it was pretty good. I think for new content creators or like players that are trying to get into streaming, I think that was one of the things that like Twitch did really well was like, okay, I want to get started in this thing. What do I even do? Where do I start? Like, where do I plug in the pieces of the computer? And so, because as you know, like OBS as a streaming tool, insanely difficult to set up. It is a power
You
tool
just saw it.
of a broadcasting studio. It's not meant to do all the things that it does, but there's really nothing else that does that. And so, you know, you need it in addition to TikTok Live Studio or YouTube Studio and all this stuff. So you just like can't really get around having to use it yet. And so, but I think one of the things like Twitch sort of did well is like, okay, like set up your account and sort of like link the, you know, it sort of like walked you through the process. But even then, once you get to a certain level, the grind is hard. And so it's like building the audience, coming up with the content, finding ways to be creative, like that there's no easy answer there. And so, you know, figuring out ways to, I don't know, just like inspire like, new stuff to make and how to make it. And that's part of our job too, to help others be as entertaining as you are, because you are our star creator, and it's definitely not an easy thing to do. And so helping others get started in the journey is part of our job.
Yeah. Matthew, Dylan, and Juice999 forever. Thank you guys so much for the follows. Thank you everybody following us over on TikTok. We appreciate you guys. Tech Savage asked in the chat, he asked, how are the hoodies going? So Cody and I are we have 2 founder hoodies that we have gotten. I will say the ones that I've sent in the Discord, they are a little bit nicer than what we're going to offer. We wanted to get nice ones for me and Cody just because a lot of players are going to see videos of us and are going to see us in person, and we wanted nice hoodies. But what we're going to do is we're going to offer more merch this year, whether it's Derby or throwback merch. So look out for that. We're going to announce that on the Discord and in videos here soon.
Jordan is very particular about his merch, if you all haven't figured that out yet. And I'm curious to know why. Where did your hoodie journey start? If my VR journey started at 5 years old in a Toys R Us,
why are the hoodies
what inspired you to be like, I won't wear any hoodie unless it feels this way and has this thing?
Okay, first of all,
because like I can't say I share the same hoodie appreciation that you do.
First of all, wait, I know Bangers. Thanks for the follow on TikTok. Thank you. Okay, so the question is how. Okay, so I'm 6'7". I don't know if you guys can see this in the video, but like I'm there. My head is almost out of the blip. So I'm really tall. So a nice hoodie to me is like so hard to find. So as I'm a big person, I just am like super. I don't know. I'm just like really particular because if I'm gonna get something, I want it to be like right. So I'm just I'm super particular about it. I don't know if I have necessarily a hoodie. I think that the best hoodie I ever had, I'll say it. It was this hoodie. It was the blue.
You just know it off the top of your head.
I know it. It is a blue hoodie. It was a blue outside shearling hoodie. It had white on the inside, and it was so awesome, and it was so warm. And I forget the name of it. I'll put it in our Discord, but it was good. It was a great hoodie. I remember that one, and I want something that is that good. Mm-hmm. Anyway, but we're gonna be
chasing that hoodie feel.
I want that. So, Lucas, thank you so much for the follow on TikTok. Talk about fan games. I think that one thing that I have noticed recently, as I look on like SideQuest and on App Lab, and like. Oh my God! John F. Kennedy just followed us on TikTok. Tyler just followed us on TikTok.
Following us from the grave. Let's go. I guess there's a lot of alive JFKs.
Let's talk about fan games. So one thing I was noticing on SideQuest the other day with Gorilla Tag. Oh my God! Rylan Green 115 just followed us too, and Damon Rodriguez. Thank you guys for the follows. One thing I've been noticing is there are a lot of fan games in the VR world where people will see a game and they'll get inspired by it, and then they'll say, "Ooh, I'm gonna make a game too." We've had a couple of people do that with Derby, where they've made stuff like in Rec Room or other apps. But I'm curious, and like you see this with like there are thousands of Gorilla Tag apps on side quests that they'll download the Unity file, they'll mod it, and then they'll be like, look, I made a game, and they'll publish it to side quest. So I'm curious about that, as like there's kind of this modding culture in VR, and how do you think that like we can help foster that as like part of a game? Because I don't think that like that's like you only experience this once you get like really deep into VR. super
Yeah. Well, and most of those games, they all sort of have like PC VR equivalents. So
Mhm.
I would say that it ties a little bit into modding culture on PC games in general, because that's really the only way that you can do it. Like, it's very hard to mod a console game because of the way that like most consoles, first party, obviously Nintendo or Disney will crush you in legal fees if you try to mod their games. Even though, I don't know, things like emulators and ROMs have been around for a long time, and there's a lot of like legal complications around how that works. But at least with PC games, like I grew up with modding culture. I built my own Counter-Strike mods. I played Counter-Strike pretty competitively in high school, and so like me and all my friends, we had Counter-Strike mods, and that's how I sort of got introduced into the modding community, because it was easy to do things like build your own skins, or like even like build your own maps and stuff. And so I think the big question is like, how do you make it sustainable as a developer now, which was not something I was thinking about when I was 16, like my own mods. I was just like, how can I make this thing look like how I want it to? This is now where we're like, oh, we're making the game, how do we also make it survive? And so how can we like afford to keep making this thing when it costs a lot of money to run it? And so that's, I think, the big challenge for us is like how sort of the ecosystem of modding works to like support and grow the game without sort of destroying it.
Especially because you see like the biggest and best games like Fortnite, Roblox, like they are essentially promoting modding, because they're like, take our game and modify it, and they're doing it on a massive mainstream scale, and it hasn't really been done in VR yet. I know that people do it in Rec Room a little bit, but like
I wouldn't even say Rec Room. I feel like the closest thing is like VR chat.
Oh,
like
VR
chat is maybe the most moddable experience right now, because even Rec Room, I think, is like a little bit more protective over their sort of ecosystem. And you're right in that if there are game creation tools within the game, you don't really need to mod it. So like there doesn't need to be a Roblox like mod system, because you can just make your own Roblox server using their studio. And so I think that's sort of the path that Rec Room wants you to take. It's the path that Fortnite wants you to take, is like use UFEN to like make your own stuff. Versus Gorilla Tag, where there isn't a way to do that. So the only way to like customize the thing is to break apart the Unity file and make your own version of it.
I think someone will get that. I think it'd be interesting if we did that for Derby. I think that would be like really powerful. I think the hard part is just like, the question always then becomes, can enough people make enough great games? And like, that's just really hard right now.
Yeah, I mean, you see it in all the other platforms too. Like Roblox has that problem. Fortnite has that problem. All the maps and servers are. So how do you sort of like surface the better stuff to the audience? And that's a hard thing. But it is something that we're thinking about, and I don't fully know how to do it yet from sort of like an ecosystem standpoint. I mean, one way to approach it is to like give our tools out so that you can use some of the pieces of what we've built to make it easier to like build your own experience. And that is something we've talked about. It might not necessarily live in Derby, but you could use, like publish to the Throwback platform or whatever, using a lot of the tools that we've built, which is one way to approach it.
Yeah, let us know in the chat or in the Discord if you want our tools to make your own game. Tech Savage in the chat says peanut. Always a good chat. Thank you for the 2 roses. MT Mystic, thank you. Tech Savage in the chat says we should talk about the Discord server. Okay, before he said we should talk about fan games. Oh, Tech Savage, we talked about fan games. Got you. You should talk about the Discord server. Okay, yeah, let's talk about the Discord server. Okay, so we have a Discord for our game, Derby Baseaball VR, but also it's for our page, Throwback VR. So some things that people ask for all the time. One is they want to talk to us, which we love. We love talking to you guys. You guys are the whole reason this game exists, and like we basically, our whole job is just like listening to you guys. So we love doing that. That's number one. Number two, people when they get into the game, they really want bats and they want hats and they want to make their own. And you can do that in our Discord. So if you go into the link in our bio or just up here at discord.gg/throwbackvr, you can actually go and get the files to make your own bats. So like these bats I think these were designed by Sammy and Ryan. Sammy is a Derby content creator. And then also Ryan is one of our community helpers. And this is the Derby pencil bat. And a bunch of people have made bats. And not only can you make the bats and design them, but you can also win peanuts for designing them and getting them into the game. So that's number one. Number two is we are going to be launching our content creator program. So people who want to earn peanuts by posting videos, getting followers, growing their following, that's going to be possible this year. So actually in like the next couple weeks. So like that is great that we're going to be doing that. And then finally, and I haven't done this yet, but the other request is people really want to be in videos that get featured here on the page. Whether it's on our TikTok or our YouTube or our Instagram, which, by the way, thank you to everybody on Instagram, has been absolutely blowing up. We went from like 800 followers to like, I think we're at like 7,700 or 7,800 followers in like, I swear, like 2 weeks. Just bananas. So thank you guys to everybody. 7,500. Still nuts. So the other thing is people really want to be in the videos. So if you want to be in videos, go to our Discord because I'm going to start a new role. Kind of like how the other big VR content creators will say like, hey, Discord, if you want to be in a video, I'm recording one right now. The only thing that's been kind of holding us back is the server, the way that private servers work. But we're actually going to be changing the way private servers work.
Should we talk about that next? I feel like talking about how private spaces work might be cool to explore a little bit.
Let's talk about that with chat too, because I know that a lot of people have been having issues with this. So I've been going into my private park, which we're in my private park right now, and our blimp. Woo! But I invited a bunch of people, like I think it was like 8 or 9 people into this one blimp yesterday or the day before, Sunday, and it was really fun. We had a great chat, but the problem was it was really hard to invite people in because right now we use Meta's system, their platform, to get people into, and but they did stay according to Tech Savage. They did stay, and so what was really hard though was getting them in because we use the Meta platform. But I think the number one thing we learned was people said, "Ooh, we want private servers," but really what they wanted was open servers with codes. And like,
yeah, they sort of like wanted the way Gorilla Tag. There's a lot of different ways to do it, I guess, and we could like talk about some of those ways. But I think, yeah, if your introduction to like matchmaking in private spaces is Gorilla Tag, you're like, oh, why do you make private servers like that, where it's like there's a code and you just sort of like jump to that specific room if there's space. I mean, I talk a little bit about how Meta uses a system that we can decide if we want to use or not, but it is encouraged that you like use it. It's called destinations. And so destinations is like the way they organize spaces on their platform. So like an app or a game can have a list of a bunch of different destinations. So for example, in Derby, there's only 2. You're either in a private park or you're in a public park. Then like something like Golf Plus or like some of these other apps, a destination could be like a specific course or like a top golf mode. So it's sort of like a map within the app. And then from that, you also have a sort of like lobby ID is what they call it. And so like you can have 1,000 people at this one destination, but they're not all like in the same park together. So they're like, the destination is, I don't know, let's say like Winter Park. And then there's also like an ID attached to that so that you can go to like that place within the app, but you still need to find the people that you want to go there with. And so that's sort of where we're at now with Derby, is that there's private parks and there's public parks. And those are the 2 types of destinations, but you still need to find a way to like bring the people that you want to that exact
Yeah.
destination type.
Yeah.
And that's what's tricky. Is like they want you to use their friending system, but it's called invite to app is the like platform piece, and it's not. We're not using it. I guess maybe to the full quality that we want right now.
Yeah, I just think that like what we've learned like with a lot of this is making everything as simple as possible. Like this is the park.
Yeah.
When you show up, it's always full.
Yeah.
This is you know click on these things and like things just start to happen. Like it needs to be so much simpler. And I think that you know to all those people who you know give us suggestions and help us make the game better, like they're always asking for a very specific solution. The hard part is the implementation. So like we can always get something into the game quickly, but it isn't always the simplest. And so we're always trying to make it better. So I think that the private servers, especially as we make content creation easier, I think
in your perfect world, how would private servers work for you? So like in the scenario for like Sunday where you're like, okay, I want to be in my private park, or like I want to play with, you know, 10 specific people.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like so, what would be the easiest way?
What I would like, so I'm a member. So if I'm a member and I can have my own custom access link, if there was someone asked, can you make your email more findable? What?
Could you just tell us your email and then we can all send you email?
Yeah, everyone send me an email.
I'd love to send you a scam email as easily as possible.
No, okay. Okay, so for me, I would like it where my park is, so this is Jordan Kutzer's private park, my park.
Yep.
And
we're here right now.
And then if there was a space where, like, if I go into the park and I'm like, okay, I want to stream or I want to do something. And so then what I would do is if I said, okay, this is my park, I'm in here and I'm like maybe prepping my cameras or whatever. And then I say, okay, there's a button and I said, okay, click. You can now, there's like a button on the bulletin board or something. And it says your park is now open. And the people who want to join my park now, they can just go somewhere and type in, you know, Jordan Kutzer or whatever. And then it opens to my, like they instantly just get sent to my park. I think that would be really cool. Because like for me, like it's not necessarily just my friends. It would be
you want
like,
acquaintances and strangers to also
like
have
people
the
talk
ability.
about like fan lobbies, and then maybe if it's like closed where people could type it in and then it would send me the request saying like, hey Jordan, like Gus wants to join you. Do you want to let them into your park?
Right.
So like,
you know what it reminds me of is sort of like the feature that we built for our mobile app, where it was sort of like request to join and sort of like that whole flow of like, oh, I'm on the stage and like I want to let anybody in, but they sort of have to ask and then I have to approve. But there should almost be like a queue. Like we almost needed like our own matchmaking system to like queue into private parks the way that we do for public parks, where you sort of like, you know, have one that you want to request in particular, and then like those requests go into like a feed in sort of the order that they were requested, so that you as the sort of host have the ability to be like, okay, I'm going to let in, you know, the next person. Kind of like callers on a radio show too, where you sort of be like, all right, next caller, and then you sort of like let them on and then
exactly
have the ability to control the flow of guests. A guest list of sorts.
Someone asked, can we add a report button?
We could. So it's built into, that's another thing that like we sort of have to use Meta's version of, is like the universal reporting. So the way that works now is you press the Oculus button and then you can like report a user from there. We could build our own custom reporting within the game. It would essentially do the same thing though.
I think that I think that all of those things are oh my god, Tech Savage. I think that there are a lot of things to be done on the moderation side. I think the hard part, and we've talked about it with our community helpers, of like the things that they want to help like police the parks a little bit better and keep it a positive experience. I think tools. I think the really hard part about moderation tools is like, and you see this across the internet, is like anytime you add a tool, every time you add a tool to like stop something, people find a way around it. So like, yes, we can do those things, but I mean,
Yeah,
it's
it makes me
always
think
going to
of
be.
Horizon Worlds has a vote to kick feature, and
Yeah,
so
I
I don't know
talked
if
about
you've
this with
been
Pizza Hui
yeah,
last week.
if you've been privy to like that, but what happens is, and there was a really good I think it was a New Yorker piece about this, or maybe it was New York, it might have been Kashmir Hill, New York Times,
Hmm.
where she was sort of like following creators around Horizon Worlds, and so one thing that feature encouraged was gangs, because what it created was the ability for a group to control the flow of who was or
Yes.
wasn't allowed in a room. So it was very easy to have a virtual VR gang of like 12 and to be able to have them basically run the majority of a vote to kick, and they could go to any space and basically just like vote to kick off whoever they didn't want. And that just created this like insane
Kick out the mods.
counter into like they were like kicking out mods, and like I don't know, it just sort of created this different problem.
Yeah.
And you see that with a lot of moderation tools.
Yeah. This is from ICVR7264 in our Discord. You should make a sandbox for people. There's been a lot of discussion about sandboxes.
What is a sandbox? When you say sandbox, what does that even mean?
That would be my pushback on like the whole sandbox thing. I know people have been really into it because of gym class just added a sandbox thing, and so I think that's kind of like been talked about more and more. But like when people suggest sandbox, to me, I'm like, have you seen our game? The whole thing is, it feels like it at least. But maybe do you mean like?
Do you think what they mean is mods? Like they want sandboxes the ability to like customize and like
yeah, I think what they mean
the
is like I think they want the ability to change like
what would be
physics.
a sandbox in Gorilla Tag? Like Gorilla Tag is one big sandbox.
Yeah, I think that like I think the number one thing is like one is Tech Savage is lobbying to be invited into the chat.
Also, what time is it? I don't have like a real timer right now, but I gotta.
It's 3:35. We've been talking for 58 minutes.
Oh wow, that's crazy. Probably gotta wrap it up soon.
I know. And so so I think with the sandbox, so when Cody and I have talked about
like, there is a VR company called Sandbox.
There is that. I think one thing we could do though is we could change the like the physics. So that's one thing that people like really get honest about is like they're like make it more realistic. But the problem is we're trying to make it fun and appealing to play to everybody, and a lot of people in the real world cannot hit home runs. And so
this is real baseball hard,
including this guy right here.
I can't even hit a virtual, and it's easy.
Oh my God, S-Sun, thank you for the follow. Thank you. And so yeah, so right now we know the physics aren't realistic, and so we could change it so that the bats are like as unrealistic or as realistic as you would like. Like we could add sliders that effectively you change the gravity or the mass of the ball or the bat or the rebound or any of that stuff. Like we could do that, but the only thing then is if you changed any of those, then they wouldn't count for like distance or records or whatever.
Yeah. How do you sort of like account for like global leaderboards, but allow for custom environments? That's the tricky part is if you don't make them universal, then you can't do things like, oh, I have the most wins.
Exactly.
You know, like if Fortnite had like a difficulty slider, then like crown wins wouldn't matter because you're like, oh, I have 100 crown wins, but you know, I guess that was the whole point of ranked mode was like, oh, but I have wins in this rank versus a lot of games tackle that with, you know, competitive spaces.
Yeah. Aaron saw Santa. Thank you for the follow. Yeah. So I do think that, I mean, the idea of a sandbox is interesting. I'm more interested in the idea of let someone like make their own map in Derby, or like I'm more interested in like there are a lot of you who know Unity, who like know Blender, and who have the skills to put something into Derby that people would probably like. I think that's more interesting to me than like look at all these different games you can make, or like look at all these different like sports you can play. Like Big Ballers or now Gym Class, or like there are a
Mhm.
lot of these games that are just like, let's build everything. And then I think that the interesting ask for us is like, well, a lot of you want to make games and you want to do stuff three-dimensionally, whether it's make maps or hats or bats, whatever. And like that's a more interesting concept to us than like look at Jordan and Cody just like flexing all these game like sports and games they can make. Like that doesn't feel as like
Yeah, it's sort of
unique.
it's like a paradox, and we talk about it as like breadth versus depth. Where do you want more depth in your thing, or do you want more breadth? And you kind of can't have either. Like you can't just be depth, and you can't just be breadth. And so it's sort of this paradox between like, okay, well, which one and how much, and knowing that VR is a platform where you probably use it a little differently than you'd use an Xbox or smartphone or something. And so knowing that I might have a shorter duration of a playtime, but it's like a more intense one, is sort of, I think, puts developers in like, oh, okay, well, I'll build more depth for that
Yeah.
like sweaty exercise session versus like Roblox where you can like do anything and sort of like do it in a 10% focused way. Like
Yeah.
there's a lot of mobile games where like, yeah, I'm only really using 10% of my focus and energy right now. And but I'm still interacting with the thing. It's like I'm in VR right now, my headset's on. I sort of have to like focus on just this,
Yeah.
which is one of the advantages of it, that it's like harder to get distracted in the thing. So
Oh
it
my
actually
God.
like it helps for depth. You have to focus, and that was like why so many people use it for training, and like it is a good training tool. Maybe not because anything related to VR, but just because it's like harder to look at my phone when I'm in here.
Yeah.
Like it's harder to get distracted. So I wonder
Yeah.
if Vision Pro will even. I mean, that might actually make things worse because it's easier to multitask and like have all these windows open, and like I might go a different way. I don't know.
Yeah. Shout out to Angel Man who sent us 112 roses in the chat on TikTok.
Oh,
Woo! Thank you
see,
so
it needs
much
to
for
rain.
sending those.
It's
Thank
raining
you.
roses, baby.
Roses.
Let's go.
But thank you. Okay, I feel like we've gotten to a bunch of good stuff.
But in terms of the game, I think we're focused on like mobile right now. I think the big focus is growing the membership and maybe making the membership more valuable. I've been really focused on like data analytics these last few weeks, which is not a super exciting thing to players, and I'm sorry for that. But it is part of game development, is starting to like collect feedback and figure out like what is happening in your game, in your experience, and looking at the numbers of like, okay, what are players actually doing versus like what they say that they're doing or say that they want, because it takes a little bit of all of it. And that is one of the hardest things about hitting the scale that we've hit with all these players, is like, okay, once you have that many players, how do you figure out and how do you look at like what they're doing and how things are changing, and how do you start to like quantitatively look at how the game's being used? And
and for
no
where
easy answer
and figuring out where they like what they like and what they don't like figuring out the parts that are broken and lead them saying, you know what, I'm done playing right now. Figuring out what would make an even better experience for them. So I think like those things are really exciting. I think that I've been feeling that more, where like a lot more of the data feels like it's so much more actionable and is going to help us make like way better and faster decisions this year than we made last year. Because a lot of the decisions were like, hey Cody, I heard all of these players like screaming at me in this park and they wanted these things.
Or like this thing wasn't working, and so we don't really know why, and we don't know if players are doing it, so we have to like go out in the parks and like talk to them and be like, is this thing working? Like, are you doing this? But now I can look at data from like last week and be like, oh, people played thousands of games of Versus last week. And like I just know that from the data, and I can just be like, oh yeah, people played a lot of Versus games, but like though they didn't really like change their hats that much. So we know the hats, they need a little bit like more satisfaction to like wearing one and choosing one, and stuff like that is informed by what players do, and like now sort of the data that is sort of like reported back to us, so we can like make those decisions a lot faster, which does benefit the players. So like now we can like make changes a lot quicker than we could a year ago.
What about I feel like I had one more question. I think that making throwing magical.
Yeah.
And that's gonna be fun because it's pretty dang fun already.
Yeah.
But if we could play like long toss in here, oh my gosh.
I know. You want a little bit of like ADS. You want some aim assist.
Yeah, I want to be like,
Yeah.
there's my boy Cody.
Yeah.
He's like all the way downfield, and I just want to
Lock in.
like
Yeah.
this.
Right. Yeah. Aim assist thing I'm working on. That's sort of like a hard math problem.
Yeah.
But I think first thing that'll come is actually just I'll probably turn back on aim assist when you're on the mound, so you can throw some perfect strikes.
Yeah, all right.
Like back when we had that for the hand tracking update.
Yeah, I think that the
But hand tracking sucks.
hand tracking sucks. I think
man.
the about the sandbox concept, I do think like changing the velocity of the bat or changing the velocity is also maybe an aspect of the sandbox that you guys are thinking about. Like if you could change the velocity of the pitch coming in, if you could have different pitch types. I know there's been a request for different like trails. If there are requests for like different pitch types, different speeds, different sounds. I know people really want like metal bats. Like that's super easy to do.
Yeah,
and
material types for bat. They're all wood bats right now. Still.
Material types. That was a suggestion from Ryan in the Discord. Shout out Ryan, always helping us. And then if on the mound you could throw different pitches, right? Like if you could have different pitches thrown to you in just like the hitting field, but then also if you could throw too, I think like that would be really fun too.
Yeah.
So I think there are a lot of things that we can definitely like continue to like bring into the fold in the game that will make it like really crazy enjoyable. And I'm like, I don't know, I'm just like super psyched for 2024. Like there's gonna be so much fun stuff to do.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the foundational things that we did last year sort of freed us up to do more of those tweaks faster. And so all of the pieces of what we built last year to sort of make Derby happen, like matchmaking and leaderboards and profiles and all the stuff that sort of like took a lot of effort on the back end. It's not always the stuff you think about when it comes to multiplayer. It's like there is to be a lot of things that happen in order for it to just feel like, oh, I just joined a park and there were people here and like we played against each other and I could see their like scores and all that stuff. You know, it takes a while to get in place. And so now I think we really get to iterate on some new stuff a lot more quickly.
Yeah. Heck yeah. Well, very good, man. Well, we're at an hour and 10, so we are well into the here. Thank you to everybody who tuned in, who gave us a bunch of great questions, feedback. We have a bunch of fun stuff coming this year, and even just in the next couple of weeks. So be on the lookout for that. Thank you to everybody who followed. We got 14 new followers from this chat, so thank you guys for that. And thank you for all the fun gifts. We really appreciate the support here at Throwback Studios. This is the whole team. This is a team of two can build. You know, this is it.
Me and you.
Yeah, this is the team. It's Jordan and Cody. And does it cost money? Is the last question in from Hunter? No. Derby is free. Derby is a free-to-play, multiplayer, social baseball game. It is a really good time with your friends, and it's a great place to make friends. So go check it out. He says he's gonna get it. Yes, he's gonna get it.
Let's go.
One question is, does it cost money to make the game? Ooh, this might be a good last question. Everyone asks about money. Yes, you guys, any game that you guys play, it's money to make. Just because people's time it costs money. It's the reason that some people are paid to make Fortnite, just like they're made their time, their weekends, their free time to build something and put it out into the world. So it does cost something, not necessarily always money. For us, it definitely we've spent a lot of time making the game and put a lot of like ourselves and blood and sweat and passion into the game. But then also, yeah, I mean, hundreds of thousands of people play Derby, and so it costs money for people to use the servers, just to run the servers. So yeah, it does cost money. Especially
cost of running the game, I think I was like always privy to that before, sort of making a multiplayer experience is like the most expensive thing. I don't know, it's all pretty close right now, but like voice chat is really expensive.
Yeah,
like we're transmitting voice data right now, and that's not free. storing all your player data and records in the cloud. Like, that's not free. Running
Yeah.
servers is expensive, which is why you see so many online games get canceled after a while. It's because it costs more money to run the game than they do make money from the game. So at some point you sort of have to stop.
Yeah.
So
So
a lot of live service games get canceled.
And I think part of the magic is that Derby looks simple, but there's actually so much technology built into the game that helps enable us to run it and scale it to the amount of players that we have. And then also, you guys are just such amazing players. You're an amazing community, amazing fans who game and love what we make. So we really appreciate that. And like, you guys are the people who make it all happen. So thank you guys so much. We wouldn't be able to do it without you.
You know what's crazy is that it's crazy. Shout out to It's crazy.
Shout out It's crazy.
It's crazy that the servers have not gone down since last April.
They've been alive.
This game has not stopped running and has not been unavailable since we launched our first public matchmaking, and it kind of crippled after that first week, and we sort of had to shut things down. Isn't that insane?
That's insane. I want to that's.
I just want to point that out. Is that Derby always works?
Yeah.
For the most part.
It is pretty nuts. It is pretty crazy. We early on we had, there were days where at the beginning of the game when we got onto App Lab, it kept doubling and doubling and doubling.
Yeah.
The user installs for I think it was for a week it just doubled, and it was just terrifying.
And we had that video go viral in April.
Oh yeah, we got
that drove a ton of growth before we had matchmaking stability. I mean, that's the challenge of being buzzy or sort of becoming too popular too fast, is it just cripples your sort of infrastructure if you're not ready for it. And
the classic, hey, your infrastructure isn't built, let's get 4.6 million people to check out this video of your game.
Yeah. Right.
That was I remember waking up so early in the morning that day and just checking my phone to be and I had texted so many people because everyone was like, what is happening with this video? This is insane. And so many people were curious how many installs were going to come from your video getting viewed that many times. It was bananas. So I do think that I do think we have definitely built so much infrastructure now that I don't know what it would take to cripple the game at this point. I don't know what it would take to shut the servers off, because it's pretty robust at this point.
Yeah, I mean, it could happen. Most of the stuff's sort of elastic, but some of the things for our cloud computing do need to be scaled up a little bit. So I could see how a couple of the pieces would maybe buckle if we had another million players in a day or something. But for the most part, it is to handle the scalability. Which is...
Hunter is asking how you can get bats. Okay, when you join Derby, this will be the last one that will end it. We heard you guys, and the first thing that people want to do when they get into the game is they want to hit a home run, and then they want to get bats. And so the way that you can get bats is on your left controller, click on the 3 lines button, and this is all on the bulletin board that you spawn into. Click on the 3-line button, and then click on shop, and that is where you can purchase the different bats, and that is how you do it. So if you hit your first home run, you get 800 peanuts, and that's enough to either buy a hat or a bat, and you can equip that in your locker in your clipboard. So that is how you do it. And guys, this has been the Throwback Show. We're going to post this to our YouTube. Thank you to everybody who's been subscribing to us on our YouTube.
Thank you.
We're on having a huge YouTube following, so thank you guys so much. We really appreciate everybody. We have a bunch of really fun stuff in store for you guys, so thank you. Thank you to 04cc3 Toots for the follow. Thank you guys. We hope you have a great rest of your day, and we will see you all in the Discord, where we will always be chatting with you guys. All right?
Later.
Oh, and for the YouTube video, be sure to like and subscribe to Throwback Studios. Be sure to like and subscribe. Apparently, there's some animation.
Ring that bell.
There's some animation, Cody, where if you say like and subscribe, it it animates the button on your page now. So I had to do that.
Yeah, you got to do it.
Yeah. All right.
All right.
Sounds good.
Catch you later,
bro.
Bye.
Bye. Oh my God.